so is Amy. Yeah, that was a hard song, huh? But it's a good song. It's a song that reminds us, just what our daily word talked about was partnering with God. And of course, this is really the basis of what we teach here at Unity, that we have this partner, and it's no further than our breath. It's no further from us than our own heartbeat, that it's right here within us, and it's all around us. And wow, when we really get into that awareness and start living from that realization, our lives change dramatically. Yes, 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 yes. Well, so we are in our 5th week of our series based on the late, great Reverend Eric Butterworth's book, Discover the Power Within You. We are a guide to the unexplored depths within. And I don't know about you, but the deeper that I go, the more that I know that I don't know. The broader it gets, the more that I know that I don't know. And I love that so much because it gives us that opportunity to keep on learning and growing and expanding for the rest of our lives. And some of the people that I respect the most have been people who into their 80s and into their 90s have continued to be open and to read and to learn and to listen and to continue to grow and expand. And many of us know many of those people here in our congregation, so I love that so much. First week, we talked about the great discovery. The great discovery is the divine potential within us. In Unity, we call it the Christ. Then we talked about the great decision. What is it that I need to let go of, or what is it that I need to embrace in order to let my imprisoned magnificence be released? So hopefully we've been working on that. Then we talked about the power of our thoughts. And of course, this is a common theme that goes through everything. And we talked about the Beatitudes and our states of being, just how am I being throughout my day? And then we talked last week about affirmative prayer and giving gratitude in advance for what it is that we desire to experience in our personal lives, in the lives of our loved ones, in our country, and in our world, and the power of that. So today we are going to focus on the laws of living and being, and in particular today we are going to focus on them as they relate specifically to abundance, to money. Oh my gosh. I always crack up because it's like, can we talk about money in church? Yes, we can, and we should be talking about money in church. So some of the spiritual principles that we're going to be looking at are that spiritual laws are truths. They are neither for us or against us. They just are. We live in a universe of principles and laws, and nothing is trying to trip us up or anything. They just are. To work with the energies and flow of life, we must get back into the awareness of God, of good everywhere. It's easy for us to get out of that awareness, isn't it? So we want to get back into that awareness. And then working with the law, we become fluent and fluid in the movement of energy and of life. As we really consciously work with these laws, it becomes like a second language for us then. We're no longer having to effort as much, although I still feel like I effort in certain areas of my life. Don't you have like certain areas of your life that just work? Like easily, like relationship or money or, jobs or health or whatever, but there are some areas that, man, they're kind of tough over and over, aren't they? And I think that has so much to do with all of this pre-programming that we've had in our lives, whether it's come from other people or whether it's programs that we ourselves have put into our subconscious minds. And we have to work harder at that, right? We have to work harder at that. I mean, I love the times when I can just fill myself with the truth and it just takes root. But sometimes I have to get in there and root out those weeds and fill myself with truth and root out more weeds and fill myself with the truth in order to get to the other side of something. Okay, so we are talking first about the laws of increase, of expansion, of giving and receiving, sowing and reaping, the law of mind action, the law of attraction, the law of abundance. So let me ask you this first. What are some words you would use to describe when you have been, how you felt, when you've been in a state of lack, when you just have been, there's just not been enough money? What are some of the feelings that you would have in it? Hopeless. What was that? Frustration. Desperation. Despair. Emptiness. Stress. Fear. Yeah. Those are happy states, aren't they? How many of us, if we had a choice, would choose that experience? I didn't think I'd see any hands up here today. Okay, Charles Fillmore says that it's a sin to be poor. Like, that's kind of a big statement, isn't it? However, when you look at what Unity teaches about sin, sin is simply missing the mark. So what he's saying here is that when we're living, now hear me, when I say that we're living in these states, it's not when we just kind of pass through these states, because we're going to pass through those states at different times, right? But when we're living in states of hopelessness, fear, anxiety, stress, etc., we're missing the mark. When we're living in a constant experience of lack, we're missing the mark, because that's a very stressful experience. Jesus said, I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. So let's not try and limit that definition and imagine that he was leaving financial abundance out of that. He wasn't. He wasn't leaving that out of that. You know, there's a fallacy that the Bible says that money is the root of all evil. And what we now know is that in 1 Timothy, it says that the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. So the love of money is that which we focus on outside of ourselves as our source, okay? The love of something outside of ourselves as our source is the root of all kinds of evil, is when we are building our lives on shifting sands. And so let's look for a moment, because you're like, evil? Well, what is evil? Let me tell you what Charles Fillmore says about evil. He says that evil is that which is a product of the fallen human consciousness, negation. So when our consciousness has fallen down to this hopelessness and despair and this angst and this worry and all of this, we have moved down into a place that's not heavenly, right? He goes on to say, and I love this so much, evil is a parasite. It has no permanent life of itself. Its whole existence depends on the life it borrows from its parent, and when its connection with the parent is severed, nothing remains. Who is the parent of apparent evil in my life? Yep, I am. My mind is. And I love this because apparent evil is the result of ignorance. And when truth is presented, the error disappears. So it's moving to that place where we recognize, oh, I'm the one feeding this, that it doesn't have a basis of reality in my life, so I can start feeding something else, yes? And this is what I love about this. Sometimes we have to go back and root things out. Sometimes we just have to say, get behind me. I'm not going to give you any more of my attention, lack. I'm not going to give you any more of my attention, and by not paying attention to it, it can't live, it can't survive. But we must fill the void, right? We must fill the void with, obviously, prosperity ideas. So this is great news, and this is what we talk about all the time in Unity, that we have the power within us to shift the experiences of our life, but we must do the work to build a solid foundation. Jesus says in Matthew, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. The master was clearly telling us to listen to what he was saying. He gave us all kinds of great advice on how to live our best life. But he's saying, don't only listen, but you must act on what I have taught you. It's not enough to know the truth. We must live. We must express the truth that we know. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. How many of us have found that to be true? How many of us have changed it? How many of us are working on changing it? Yes. But he goes on to say, but everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. Now, as I've shared before, Jesus was always sharing things relevant to what people understood in that day. And he had seen homes that, weren't like our homes today, built on the sand, and they were washed away by the wind and the water. So what he was saying here is that our lives can easily be built upon these shifting sands when we look at anything outside of us as being the source of our good, as being the source of our peace of mind or our security, our sense of freedom. When we're hooked into life has to be this way, my bank account has to be this much, my retirement has to be this much, my income has to be this much, and my entire being is hooked into that is what's going to give me my good, that's what's going to give me my peace of mind, anything can come along, right? The economy tanks, you lose your job. I mean, anything can come along in that. So here's what the great teacher says. And here's what I want to say about this. It's okay, and in fact, I think it's good to have money in a savings account or retirement. This is not anything against having a savings or having things ready for your future. But he says, don't store for yourselves up treasures on earth where moth and rust will destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasure in heaven where moth and rust don't destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Ding, 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 ding. Right? Yeah. So clearly, in that time, they didn't have buildings like we have today. They didn't have banks. They didn't have safe deposit box. So any valuables that they had, they either went and dug a hole somewhere and put them in the hole, or they put them in the walls of their house, or they put them in the floors of their house. They just tried to hide everything, and some stuff the moths would eat, some stuff the rust would, it would be gone. And many times thieves broke in, and so their focus was on what? Their focus was on fear, that what they had was going to be taken away from them. So he's simply saying here, lay up treasures in heaven. Let that be where we put our focus first and foremost. He says, Eric Butterworth says, Jesus is telling us that if our evaluation of the important things of life is centered only in materiality, then the moths and rust of selfishness, covetousness, competition, fear, and tension will surely consume our possessions and even us. And the thieves of inflation and depression, both mental and economic, will steal our good from us. And I think we've all experienced this, right? Where we've been in that fear, we've been in that angst, and it doesn't feel good to be there, does it? I'm going to tell you it's normal. I always like to say this, something happens, it's normal to take the hit, but we want to shift out of that place that we initially find ourselves in. So when Jesus says to lay up treasures in heaven, there are a couple of things here. And the first one is, seek first the kingdom of God. And what? All these things will be added unto you. The really awesome thing about this is that when we seek first the kingdom, and that is really allowing ourselves to lean back into that greater reality, that knowing that there's this free flow of abundance that is always teeming in the realm of spirit, that we sink back into that, then my train of thought just went someplace else. So, and all these things will be added unto us. The train, well, off the track there. It's coming back. The really awesome thing is that as we get more secure in our knowing and in our faith that everything that I need will always be here for me, then, it almost derailed again, but I caught it. Then, the things are added unto us, but they aren't the most important things anymore. I mean, it's an amazing experience to have because you recognize, oh, these are great. These really add to my joy and add to my happiness, but they're not the source of my good. And it's so important about that. I think we do need to really open ourselves up to remembering, and we talk about this, that we live and move and have our being in this divine substance. And this divine substance is teeming with potentiality and possibilities. How often do we go there? How often do we allow ourselves just to be there and to be open to that? Jesus says when we're there, nothing can steal our good. Why? Because we walk in faith. It was so interesting. Paul and I got to go with Lisa Landrigan to the Vets Coming Home Center up on Jefferson. And this is a place where our unsheltered friends can go during the day and they can get meals and stuff. And there's a minister there who oversees everything. Just a fantastic guy. I mean, just has such a love for this community. And he's a very fundamental, mainstream minister. So it was very interesting in listening to how he sees things, because he definitely talked about how the devil's wanting to strip things away, and we're just smiling. It's like But what really struck me was faith is faith. And this man had such a foundation of faith that all of their needs would be met. And I mean, they had these really new state-of-the-art refrigerators and freezers. They had stoves. They had things come to them that people just donated to them. And it just was one of those moments where I was like, I want to share this because it doesn't matter what religion you are. Faith is faith. And when you have faith in God, whatever that image of God is, now for me, I personally believe that, the desire of the universe is more than enough. How about you guys? Like, it's not just, hey, I just want to get by, but that there's more than enough that can come into my life. I'm getting ahead of myself here, so here's the thing for today. I just want to tell you I have 2 different endings to my talk, and I hadn't decided which ending I'm going with, and I still don't know because I'm not there yet, so you'll just have to hold on a second. We'll all be surprised. We'll all be surprised today. But the whole idea here is that we need to open ourselves up to the expansiveness of the universe in which we live and move and have our being, and allow ourselves to be in that place of wanting to be surprised by how the universe works things out. Because I promise you that when you step back into that and you give it over and you say, this or something better, here it is, God, and you give it over, you will be surprised in a really good way. Because this divine intelligence knows way more than my limited human mind knows. So it's amazing to do that. And Eric Butterworth says this is what we often refer to as building a prosperity consciousness. The realization that God is the source of our supply, that all supply comes from an inner resource, and that our greatest need is not so much to build great reserves of wealth out here, although you're welcome to, but is to build up great faith, that there will always be a flow of substance through us as ideas and into our experience as money to meet every legitimate need. I'm just going to say to meet every need. So he was saying, to build a mental bank account of faith, building an awareness of the omnipresence of the substance of spirit. And this consciousness will reflect and attract back to us of its kind, right? Absolutely. But he says the problem is we need to get single visioned, and that many times and bottom line, it's we can't serve 2 masters, my friends. We can't serve lack and abundance. You can try, but you really can't serve lack and abundance. So you want to be more focused on abundance, right? You want to be focused on the abundance of the universe. He says that we think we know we think we know the truth and are working with it. We think we believe that God is the only presence and power in our lives, but we turn around in fear that our bank account will not hold out, in resistance to the person who seems to be a threat to our position, and in apprehension over the dark road that looms before us. But when you really have faith in God, when you really believe that God is your supply, your security, your help in every need, then you will do the wise and discerning thing about your job, your possessions, your investments, but you will only think of them as channels through which your good comes. Wisdom will dictate an orderly handling of your financial affairs, but faith will keep you free from worry and fear. So lighten up. Lighten up. Because you have so much more going for you than you realize. So I now know where I'm going to go to end this. So the next thing is the law of compensation. And he has a whole chapter on the law of compensation. And then the law of compensation, in that chapter, he talks about karma and how there's this belief that, whatever you put out, it's going to come back to you. And we have essentially a belief like that. But here's the thing that I want to tell you. When I say you have so much more going for you than what you realize, there's this beautiful, 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 beautiful gift that we have been given. And this gift is called grace. And my favorite definition of grace comes from Reverend Eric Butterworth. And it is that grace is that we never reap the full harvest of our error thinking, and that we always reap more good than we sow. Now, why is this important in talking about this right now when we're talking about money, financial flow, financial freedom? Because in our New Thought circles, and I've read it, I've heard it, where it's very clearly said that every thought that you think is creative. And you need to be aware of every thought, and you need to be aware of every action that you take. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that puts a whole lot of pressure on us, doesn't it? Because who of us doesn't think thoughts that are not in alignment with what we want? All of us think it, right? And so this idea that it's so black and white, not so much. And here's why. We never reap the full harvest of our error thinking. Thank God. Imagine if everything just manifested that we thought. Yeah. What? We'd be crazy. Thank God. Not everything that we think manifests. Most of our thoughts are like, I think of it as like a feather that just is touching the side of a mountain. And they just lightly touches it, but doesn't leave a big impression, or it doesn't change the dynamic of the mountain. Even if you took 100 pounds of feathers, which is a lot of feathers, and you threw it on that mountain, it's not going to affect it. And here's why. A second part of this is that we always reap more good than we sow. And do you know why that is? It's because in Unity we believe that God is good. Now, that can be hard to wrap our minds around, but here's how it works for me. When I think of God as good, well, let me start on the opposite side of it. Let's think of when we are in a negative state. We're closed down. It's kind of a dark place. Like, what are some words that describe how you feel when you're in kind of a dark place, or what would you call a bad experience? Isolated. Hopeless. Yeah, we're contracted. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. So we're in this more contracted space, and we would call that bad. Well, God is expansive. God is creativity itself. God is openness. God is this. And the moment that any of our thoughts go into the realm of divine substance that we call God, it's already working in our favor, because it is immersed in this expansive energy. That's why not every negative thought you think is going to hit you in your life. I just want to say, give yourself a break. Lighten up on this. The things that we want to get a hold of are, what am I thinking about? What is my focus? Where is my faith pointed most of the time? We don't have to get to 100%. I don't even know if we need to get to 51%, because we've got this universal divine intelligence that is always moving us this way. We have to paddle upstream to go this way. How fun is that? And we do it, don't we? I'm going to think about lack. I'm going to think about what's not in my bank account. I'm going to think I'm not going to have money to pay this. We're going upstream when all the time this divine substance, God is saying, just turn around. Because you are so supported and you are so loved. And the desire is for you to have life abundantly. All of life abundantly. So I just want to encourage you, number one, to think about, where is my consciousness when it comes to money? Money is good. Can we say that together? Money is good. Money's good. More than enough money is really good. Yes? I mean, why not? Why not? Money can be an incredible tool in our world. Money can make such a difference in our world. Don't you want to have more than enough that you can give whatever you want to give at any time to make a difference in the world? Yes. Do you? Yes. Okay. So make that an okay thing in you. Make friends with money. Money is a good thing. But ultimately, I want to encourage you to just amp up living life abundantly. Have fun. You know, we had so much fun last night at our spooktruncular, and I got to tell you, it was the best one we've ever had. And not because we had so many participants. I think there were 9 or 10 of us that were actually giving candy out in here, but because we had at least a couple hundred kids from around the neighborhood come to this church for trick or treat, and then got to go into fellowship hall and have cakes and do all kinds of activities. What? Wow. And these parents were dressed up, and people were having a good time, and those of us who participated, we were dressed up having a good time. Lighten up, you guys. Have some fun. Like, get out there and get out beyond yourself and do the things that you want to do and do the things that you love to do. Live life. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. As you start living your life that way, people are going to say, I want what you have. What do you have? Because I want it. So, okay, I'm done. So, have fun. Bless God. Namaste. Oh, I love you guys. Thank you for just loving me through it.